A starting point for making your code easy to understand is to make the text itself easy to read. All the code in a code base should have consistent formatting, including consistent indentation, braces, and headers. Coding guidelines often have rules such as the use of white space, the use of parentheses to avoid operator precedent confusion, and using spaces instead of tabs so the code looks the same when viewed on different text editors. Here's an example of code that intentionally did not follow good formatting rules. This is a program that implements a flight simulator from the Obfuscated C contest. While writing flight simulator code in the shape of an airplane is cute, that's not how you want to do production code. In general, industry code tends to be a better format than that, but there is no reason for you to have inconsistent spacing and formatting, because you can get tools that clean it up for you automatically. Another aspect of making code easy to read is to use appropriate comments in the code. Comments should explain what the code is doing at a high level and why you implemented it in a particular way. It should not simply paraphrase what the code says, because the reader can get that from the code itself. It's important to note that the comments themselves are not a design. Rather, comments are there as supplemental material to help understand how the code was written, which is all about the implementation. We often hear, well, there's no point adding comments because they'll just get out of date. The problem there is not that comments are a bad idea, but rather that developers don't see them as a useful thing, and so they're not keeping them updated. So instead of avoiding comments, think about ways that comments can provide enough value that they seem worthwhile to keep up to date, rather than being a hoop to jump through. A descriptive naming convention should be used that provides a consistent naming style. One common idea is that variables should be nouns, and functions should be verbs or verb phrases. Abbreviations should always be consistent. For example, if the word length is abbreviated in one variable as len, that same three-letter abbreviation for length should be used everywhere to avoid confusion. One of the most dangerous things you can do with style is have different variables that have almost the same name but do different things. That's just asking for a bug. Finally, in this area, avoid magic numbers embedded in the code, such as a 3 or a 7 or something like that. Instead, use a named constant value. One of the many reasons for this is that if you have to change that constant value, and it used to be 7, and there's 100 places where there's a 7 in the code, how do you know which of the 7s was that value and which of the 7s happened to be some other value that was 7? It's a real mess to clean up, so you're always better off using a constant value that's named rather than the actual number. Finally, macros should be avoided because they're subject to tricky failure modes and easily obscure what's really going on. The simplest example of avoiding macros is that you should not use #define to set a constant value, but rather use the const keyword with integers so that you can use the compiler support for this. Among other things, that gives you stronger type checking.